Hey guys, how's it going? Kevin Cleary here with a watch video for you. Today, I've got something really cool. Now, I brought these out because I think these kind of fit in a similar category. Both of these are great watches. They're comfortable, they're, durable. The Eco Drive on the Citizen watches is phenomenal. In fact, I've watched a couple of videos recently where they tested watches over time to see how well they kept. Um, how accurate they were over time, and the Eco Drive watches were phenomenal. All right, um, Casio does a great job as well, but probably doesn't stand out quite as much as the Eco Drive or as much as the watch that I actually want to share with you, which I think takes both of these watches and adds just an extra layer of cool factor and makes this a bit more of a watch guy's watch, and that is this watch right here. You are looking at the Bulova Lunar Pilot. Now, I'm going to pop this off so I can put it down on the ground and give you a little better look, but I thought I'd keep it on wrist for the introduction. All right, guys, so here is a closer look at this really fantastic watch. I have to say, first of all, if you take a close look at the details, it's going to be hard to show. There you go. You can see it now on camera. But look at the indentation around the outside. The subdials are also indented and have this really great sort of reflective element to them. The yeah, the minor details here are so well done. This is a really great looking watch. And of course, I am familiar with the smaller version that's out now. So Bulova just this year, I guess maybe last year, released the Lunar Pilot in a 43 millimeter. This is the 45 millimeter. It's the one that's been out for a while. And this one is considerably more affordable, which is one of the reasons I picked it up. I looked at, I will say this, I actually did go in and take a look at the smaller Lunar Pilot, and it's nice. There's no question that it's nice. However, the place I was at, like the retail on it was like $1,100, and then they're like, "Oh, well, we've got a special sale on. We can probably do like 900, like 886 or something like that, or 896." Um, yeah, no, that's a hard pass for me. For a Bulova, for a watch that's quartz, I'm not into doing that. Um, so I knew that, by the way, I knew this was coming. I had already picked it up, and I was kind of aware of the watch, and that's why I went in to take a look at the smaller version. Now, having said that, the blue and white, like sort of the panda-ish looking version, is beautiful. I was able to put it on wrist, take a close look at it. It's an attractive watch, no argument at all about that. But there's no way I'm paying that kind of money for it. So, will I ever get one? I don't know. I like the look of it an awful lot, and if I can find one maybe cheap on the secondary market or something, I may do that. But for now, this is my Bulova Lunar Pilot, and it is phenomenal. This watch is much more affordable. You can just go buy it on Amazon or something for like $500. In the US, that's probably quite a bit less, 350 or something like that. Um, but also on the secondary market, you can get these for a really good price. And what's compelling about this is there's a lot of history, there's a lot of interest, there's a lot of quality here for a rather affordable price point. All right. And by the way, while I'm talking about this, I mean, this watch to me is much more desirable, much more interesting, much better looking, much more substantial than the Moonwatch. I'm in a couple of watch groups, and I see Moonwatch sales like pop up all the time. By the way, they're continually dropping in price, but I just can't. One, I'm not that into watches, so it's not like I've been waiting for years and years, always wanting a Speedmaster. So that probably plays into it as well. But when I look at a watch like this, I just can't imagine why anyone would pay the kind of money you could get this for, but buy a Moonswatch. Just doesn't make sense. Anyway, having said all of that, I do want to point out that this has some real history to it. Back in the day, I mean, famously, we all know the Omega Speedmaster is the watch that kind of won the bid through NASA to make the watches that the pilots would wear on the moon missions. Okay, however, what not everyone knows, and I mean, if you're into watches, you probably know this, but nonetheless, some of you watching will be more knife guys, and maybe you're just mildly interested in this, but it's still a pretty cool story. So as you know, Omega is the company that does the Speedmaster. They got the contract with NASA to provide watches to astronauts, and kind of story over. All right. Bulova was also in the running, and of course, this is the watch that they were making to try and sort of compete with Omega at the time. And Omega got the nod, Bulova didn't. However, they gave one of the prototypes to Neil Armstrong. And he just happened to, like, you'd think he'd just stick it in a drawer at home or whatever, but he brought it with him as one of his like personal effects on the mission to the moon. Now, what's even more sort of interesting, astounding, whatever the case may be, compelling, is that his Speedmaster broke well up in space. And so he actually switched it out for his personal Bulova and wore that while out doing a spacewalk on the moon. So this watch has also been to the moon, just, not sort of the regular way. And I think that is a pretty cool story to go along with this watch. All right, now that we've gotten that out of the way, kind of touched on the cool factor, we've already taken a look at this, and I do think this is a very, very attractive. Look at that. I love the details. I love the depth of this watch face. I love the visibility of it. Like, this is a great looking watch. 45 millimeters is the case size here, so that's pretty big. It weighs in at 3.9 ounces, which is kind of hefty. The lug width is 20 millimeter, so lots of strap options out there. Now, in terms of performance, I want to touch on this. This has a 262 kilohertz quartz movement, which is really, really accurate. In fact, what Bulova claims is that it's plus or minus 10 seconds per year. That's really good. A lot of quartz movements are plus or minus 10 or 15 seconds per month. So that is really impressive. Okay. You got to give credit where credit is due. And certainly that's one of the places where credit is due. Now, one of the reasons I brought the Citizen in, the Nighthawk over here. Hold on. There we go. One of the reasons I brought this watch in is because I've watched a couple of the testing videos, where they measure a watch over time to see how accurate it is. And the Bulova Lunar pilots do really, really well. However, the watches that sometimes even beat the Lunar pilot are the Citizen EcoDrive watches. So that, I think, is pretty cool and a real feather in the cap of Citizen, which, has tons and tons of models that are fairly reasonably priced. Okay, so I think that's a pretty cool thing, and I wanted to kind of mention that as an aside here. Back to the watch in question. This is a chronograph, of course, which is just a fancy name for stopwatch. The way this one works is, look at these pushers. They're really, really neat. So instead of, having a button here, there's sort of like this hinged bar, and you push this in at the top, and that starts your stopwatch. Okay, and then, whatever, I don't know if you're running a race or you're timing yourself for how many push-ups you can do in a minute or whatever the case may be, you stop the watch and there's your time. The subdial here is tenths of a second. Okay, down here we've got the second hand, which keeps moving. Over here, this other subdial is going to be, your full 1 hour dial. So if you were really timing this for a long time and you were getting to 20, 30, 40, you can see here 40, 50, up to 60 minutes, that would be keeping track that way. So then when you stop this, all right, around 30 seconds, now you press the bottom pusher and that resets everything. So very nicely done. This is, there's lots of chronographs out there. This is, and if you're not a watch person, when you hear that, all it is a stopwatch. Okay. I know I'm getting a little bit of extra glare here. I somehow had gotten rid of most of it and now it's back. Um, It is a sapphire crystal. The hands, as you can see, are really simple and straightforward. I have to say, this is my own personal preference. I really dislike the hands that have the circles in the middle of them, and I'm sure that's borrowing from Rolex or Omega or someone important. But that's really off-putting. So I like just the sort of these simple hands. Um, Also, I really like the extra detail afforded by chronographs. You saw the Nighthawk is also a chronograph. I like it as well. The other thing I've got to admit to is I've been doing this watch thing for a little while, and I've got a few different watches that I really like. Honestly, most of them are quartz. There's something about like the reliability and the idea that I don't have to think about setting this watch ever that is very, very appealing to me. And I know that's like, you know, I know that's not a watch guy thing to say, but I really, really like the quartz watches. And this, of course, is one. Um, so you're going to see a few more quartz watches on the channel coming up. I hope you enjoy that, and I hope you're not like, oh, forget this joker. He doesn't like mechanical watches. I do like mechanical watches. I've got one or two, but it's just, the fact that I always have to wind it and set it and all that stuff is kind of annoying to me. Anyway, back to the watch in question. What is really cool about this watch is it satisfies that desire to have something cool, something special, something with a bit of history to it, while at the same time being fairly affordable, being highly reliable, and just a watch that you don't have to think about. You can just stick it in your watch box when you're not wearing it, throw it on, it's going to be right. It's going to be, you're not going to have to worry too much about anything like the watch being off every so often. You're going to reset it every 6 months for daylight savings time anyway. And so, yeah, really, really great. The last thing I will say before we leave is I'm not in love with the bands that it comes with. But with that 20 millimeter lug width, there's lots of bands out there that will work. And I've got a couple that I'm looking at putting this on. So if I do that, I'll do a little update and just saying, this is the band I ended up going with, and here's what I think of it. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check those channel sponsors. It's a huge, huge help. We will talk to you soon.